This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
And happy Friday, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes, and I'm always excited to be here with you every Friday night to give you the latest information, the latest researchers, witnesses from this very perplexing phenomenon that we're dealing with. I have had an interesting week, and I'll share a little bit more about that later on. But first, I want to just give you some information. I have listeners from all over the world, and I want to give a shout out to Gary Hesseltine, who is putting together UFO Truth Magazine's big conference that is taking place September 11th in Holmfirth. Larry Warren, Nick Redfern, of course, Gary will be there. It will be an exciting event, and I really wish that I could have timed my visit to the UK with this festival, but I know it will be absolutely off the charts. I will be speaking at Starworks Symposium coming up in Laughlin, Nevada in November, so get your tickets. I will be talking about MUFON as well as the research I'm doing on Project Orange and my latest case of the pilot sighting over Nephi, Utah. So get your tickets. I have another announcement. I keep teasing you guys with this, but I will be announcing another speaking engagement, a pretty big one coming up. I'll keep you posted. So I hope with all that, I have to say, find me on Facebook, UFO Classified. Go to my website, ufoclassified.com. And don't forget, it is Fantopia Friday, so Tina Marie is in the house. She'll be up next with Restricted Airspace. But now, without further ado, I have to bring on my guest this evening. It takes a very certain, a really specific type of person to lead an organization, to get out there, to have the dedication, a magnetic personality, and the drive to succeed. And we have to mention the brains to do it. My guest tonight, Steve Murillo, is one of those people, and he has done incredible things in his career. He is from Southern California. He graduated from the United States Naval Academy, where he received his Bachelor of Science degree in Systems Engineering. He was commissioned as an officer in the Marine Corps, attended flight school, and served 7 years of active duty as a jet pilot and maintenance officer for his squadron. That is really, really cool. He also worked for the aerospace company TRW, where he became the power subsystem engineer for a satellite program known as TDRSS, Tracking and Data Relay Satellite System. After this stint with doing all of these really, really cool things, very fabulous, impressive, he decided that he wanted to follow his passion, which was real estate. He had a personal sighting, which we're going to get into tonight, and just like many of us in the field, that propelled him to reach out to different organizations to get involved. He found MUFON, and he served as the state section director for 13 years, conducting field investigations and monthly meetings. He now heads up UPARS LA, the UFO and Paranormal Research Society Los Angeles chapter. He and his group investigate things from cattle mutilations, the paranormal, UFO sightings. He's a force to be reckoned with, and you can find some of the best videos on YouTube of UPARS, so you need to really check that out. And I've been posting them on my UFO Classified site because they are so cool. So without further ado, Steve, welcome to the show. Are you having a glass of wine, looking at the ocean?
No, Eric, I'm not. I'm sitting on my sofa having a Diet Dew, my favorite drink.
Well, dang. It is Friday night.
I know.
So,
I can see the ocean, but, nothing so romantic. Just a Diet Mountain Dew and I'm good to go.
Okay. Well, I probably should switch to Mountain Dew. I don't know. Instead of Diet Coke.
I don't know. I don't know. The first one's free. After that, you're hooked.
So you had a personal sighting, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit because,
Sure.
You're just like me. I had a personal sighting, and that's what propelled me into this. But tell our listeners about it.
Well, it was back in the early 2000s. In fact, it was 2001 now, 2001, I can't remember. It was May. It was an evening. I had just trained karate. I came home from a hard training. We had been fighting, so I was all beat up. And the house we lived in at the time had a rooftop deck with a hot tub. And so after I came home, my wife handed me a glass of wine, and we went up there, and she handed me a glass of wine. I climbed in the hot tub to kind of simmer down, and she said, "Oh, I forgot mine," So she went back downstairs again. It's about 9:30 at night. So I'm in Manhattan Beach in my hot tub, looking out towards the ocean, and it's probably, I don't remember the moon exactly, but it was just a normal night, and I'm looking out at the ocean, and I see these birds coming at me. I see some seagulls, right? They're low to the horizon and they're coming at me, and I'm thinking, here comes some seagulls. And then I'm thinking, why is somebody shining a spotlight on seagulls? Because they're so bright, they're so well lit that I'm thinking, who's following? Your mind starts to try to make sense of what you're seeing. So these things fly directly, they're coming from the west, they're flying due east, directly over my head. And as they're getting over my head, silently, of course, no noise, it's a formation of 5, 1 in the lead and then 2 off both sides. And I'm looking at these things, and they're triangular, but if you were to picture a throwing star, like a ninja throwing star with 3 points to it,
Mm-hmm.
that's what these things looked like. And they were in perfect formation. Each one was glowing as if each one was light itself. In other words, they didn't have little navigation blinky lights or anything. Each one was solid light and a very coherent light. The light, to me, gave me the impression that the light had substance. And I've heard over the years from that point, I have heard that description before since then. But anyway, these things flew over my head, and as I watched them go silently over my head directly east, 3 of them split off and slid across the sky. When I say slid, they didn't yank and bank like a normal jet would turn. A jet banks and then it turns. It needs to bank so it can use the air to make itself turn. But these things literally slid or translated across the sky. 3 of them did, and the other 2 continued on for a few seconds. And then, now they've probably got about 2 miles of separation between them. And the other 2, after a few seconds, just slid across the sky and joined up with the others, and they were gone. And it was such a profound sighting for me that I jumped out of the hot tub screaming to my wife, ran downstairs, got on the computer, got on Netscape and searched for UFOs. And the first thing that hit me was a form to fill out, report a sighting in Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles. So I filled out this form. It was online. And a couple of days later, I got a call from a gentleman named Bill Casey. And Bill at the time was the director of field investigations for MUFON Los Angeles. And he interviewed me for about a half an hour. And then he said, well, I think you had a really, really good sighting there. That's a very, very solid sighting. And he said, hey, we're meeting tonight, Tuesday night, in Studio City. Would you like to attend? And I was like, of course. I was so wrapped up in it at that point. I was like, yeah, I'll be there. So I was there, and I started going to their meetings. And after about 3 or 4, they invited me to join their board, which I did. Don Waldrop at the time was the director for MUFON Los Angeles, state section director. And they brought me on, and I attended their board meetings monthly. And before you know it, about a year and a half later, Don was stepping down and moving to Florida. And I was asked by Georgianne Cifarelli, who was his boss at the time, if I'd take the post. So I said, sure. So I took the post. And for 13 years, I was the state section director for MUFON Los Angeles.
That is so incredible. And it to me, you really have to have a sighting, honestly, before you can
Yep.
really understand what it is you're dealing with. And also, I think, have an open enough mind to really look, to really study what's taking place. And it surprises me always that there are some people that have never had a sighting that research this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised by their tenacity because I don't think I'd have the fuel. Because it's hard enough chasing this phenomenon when you don't really, it's hard enough if you know it exists. It's still very, very hard to chase the phenomenon because it's so evasive. It almost displays its own intelligence, the phenomenon itself. So yeah, to not have a sighting and try to do this, I would think is even more challenging for sure.
It would be, but you think of Stanton Friedman, and he's a brilliant researcher, and he's never had a sighting, but he's had lots of tenacity. And I suppose that we definitely need people like that in the field. But do you think, since you had your sighting, do you feel that you have been kind of opened up and you see more now?
Oh, absolutely. I always look at that event as a turning point in my adult life. So I always think of it as like somebody took a crowbar and pried open my brain, you know what I mean, to let a little more light in. Because after that, I started, so the first thing that happens when you have a sighting like that is you all of a sudden realize that everything you were told as a kid and all the laughter that you hear when somebody says, I saw a UFO, all of that falls by the wayside. And you realize that the subject itself is being obfuscated or, it's being controlled. The information about it has been controlled and you are being fed a lie, basically.
Right.
And so now you start questioning everything. Well, okay, so I started reading. First thing I started doing was reading all the books I could get my hands on. And one of the first ones I think I came across, Richard Dolan's books were great, UFOs in the National Security State. I think just about a little bit later, he came out with those books, and those were excellent. But Jim Marrs, I came across his books. I think, what was the one about aliens? What was his title? The Alien Agenda, was that it?
That sounds familiar, and I have to
I can't remember.
confess. Yeah, I've not read any of his books.
Oh, Jim Marrs is excellent because Jim Marrs he treats the subject of UFOs and aliens the same as he treats any other quote unquote conspiracy theory. That our knee jerk reaction to this sort of information is to call it a conspiracy theory, but he takes those things apart. And after reading his books about aliens and UFOs, I got into Rule by Secrecy, which is another book by Jim Marrs, where he talks about the Bilderbergers and the CFR and all these different things, and how we've come to be ruled by sort of an elitist, kind of a quiet elite that kind of pull the strings, and everybody thinks we're being ruled by our quote unquote government, but in the end, it's not exactly the case. That's not exactly the case. So anyway, yeah, the experience allowed me to challenge all of the information that I'd been taught my whole life. I was a very pragmatic. I was an engineer in college, and then, I was a pilot. You do things by the numbers, and you deal with what's in front of you. You don't kind of deal with the flighty. You know what I mean? I was a very, very, black and white kind of guy. But after I got into this field, everything kind of shifted for me, even to the point of where now we're open to paranormal phenomena because we observed and recorded a lot of that along the way. So.
Well, and I noticed that you had Dr. Barry Taff speak at one of your meetings, and his book is one that I go to all the time. And which
one's that?
Interesting. It's Aliens Above, Ghosts Below.
Oh, okay. Good title.
Yeah, it is. It's a great book. So, and I love the fact that, he said that in the video that you have up on your YouTube channel. He is not one of the people that you would see on TV. He's a scientist, and he really researches this.
Yeah, he really does. And it's hard to get him to, he gets calls all the time from History Channel and Discovery and all that, but he puts most of them aside. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. But yeah, he was kind enough to come to one of our meetings and give a talk.
That is fabulous. I was fortunate enough to spend an hour talking to him and just picking his brain, and it was a fascinating conversation. He's a really brilliant guy.
I'll bet. Aliens Above, Ghosts Below. I'll have to read this one. This looks good.
Well, you read that, and I'll read the Jim Mars books, and then we'll get back to each other.
You got a deal.
So, when you had these sightings, I mean, obviously your wife was inside, and then she talks to you, and you've had this epiphany, this really odd sighting. What was her reaction after that took place?
She's sort of open to she has an open mind. She's a little more open to this sort of thing than I am in terms of, she's non-judgmental. Her mind is less judgmental about things. So, like, had I not had that experience, I probably would have laughed off a buddy of mine who said he saw UFOs, right? But I had the experience. She's been supportive along the way, too. Now, she never had a sighting until after I got into ufology, until I became state section director, and we started leading these little trips out to the desert. And we had a nice sighting there that threw her over the line, right? Where now she's had her own experience. So, she doesn't doubt things anymore at all,
And that's nice. Don't you find it interesting, though? My husband is a chemical engineer and very methodical about things, and this isn't even on his spectrum.
Right.
And so it's interesting dealing with, people that don't think this is necessarily reality, and maybe people that don't care if it is, and to watch them as they have experiences and then see how they deal with it.
Yeah, I find it kind of troubling and also a little bit hard to believe that certain people don't think it's an important issue. It's an important, first of all, the final admission of, aliens among us, or that these things exist, will be one of the most profound things that happens in modern day history, if it ever happens. It'll be the equivalent of us discovering fire. When we went from having no fire to having fire, or us discovering the wheel way back when. It would be the equivalent. It'll be a game changer like that. Because once that is disclosed, finally, there are a lot of things that you have to admit. One, you're not alone. Okay, well, that's interesting. We have neighbors from all over the country and different countries, and okay, that's interesting, right? We're not alone in the universe. But from a probability standpoint, that's not hard to believe. But what their methods of transportation represent is a type of energy that we don't have. And this planet is struggling now. It's at war with itself over energy. We're killing one another over oil, allegedly killing each other over oil. Whatever the real reason is, it remains to be seen. But we all admit we need energy, right? We got to run our machines, and they run off of carbon-based technology. These machines that come from other dimensions, and I'm always hesitant to say they come from quote unquote outer space. I don't think so. After all my research, they may translate through our space-time and through our universe, but they do not necessarily come from our space. You know what I mean? People call them space aliens.
I agree with you.
People call them space aliens, and I think, oh my God, space, whatever. These things are in time machines. These things, because to move, either they're moving interdimensionally or they're moving from across vast distances in our own universe and galaxy. So if they're doing that, they have the equivalent of what you'd call a time machine. They're translating through our space-time in ways that we don't understand, using energy we don't have, or that we don't know we have. The public doesn't know we have. So again, the final disclosure would be earth-shattering. It'll be civilization changing for all of us, not just the United States, but worldwide.
I agree. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is so fascinating, and like you, the more I research, the more I am definitely convinced that there's something here, something terrestrial, something interdimensional. I mean, I think there might be a whole host of things taking place, but the bottom line is we have no freaking idea.
Right.
And
we really don't.
I just think that it's at some point in time we have to get over our egos and just say, okay, we can't come into this with any type of bias, and what do we can't say that it's ET, and we can't say it's this or that, but it's just
and that's part of the problem with ufology, is that there are a lot of people who call themselves researchers or whatever, or write books, and they all want to have a theory, because with a theory, you can sell a theory, and they're all thinking they've got the answer. But the reality is, I think they're poking, they're making a little poke in a big old spear. You know what I mean? It really, as I've studied this phenomenon over the years, I've kind of come to find out, or believe, that it really sort of defies our definitions. The phenomenon itself won't fit in our concept of reality. It exists outside of that concept. We may compartmentalize portions of it that we observe and put them in terms and define it in terms of our own reality, but in a greater sense, this thing, whatever it is, this phenomenon, exceeds those boundaries. So very hard for us to characterize. Yet we see a lot of people wanting to characterize the thing and say they have the answers. Whenever I hear a ufologist or some researcher say, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what it is. It's 19 species from the Pleiades or whatever," whatever, dude. Thank you. See ya.
I know. I mean, the more I learn and study, the more I just sit there, honestly, with my jaw hanging open, because I have more questions every day that I look into this. And I think that I do kind of sit back sometimes and look at the field of ufology and think, wow, this is not necessarily where I want to go, because there's not a lot of, we need forward-thinking people, and we need to not get so caught up in the money-making aspect and all of that good stuff. But
and I've watched researchers think they're going to get rich at writing a book or talking about abduction or what. The reality of it is the controls that have been put in place to control the information are so profound and so well put in place, entrenched in our societal makeup, that they'll never gain the sort of audience that's going to propel them to great wealth. And so you see a lot of people coming up with good information, but they're struggling to sell it, and they don't quite get why they're not, they don't have the answer. They may think they do, but...
And I hate to interrupt you. We're going to finish this thought when you get back. We're going to jump to a quick break, and we will be right back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Where'd that shot come from?
Alpha 3 to Eagle 1. We've got company.
From Tay Publishing, codename Eagle Force, the saga begins.
I see them, Alpha 3. All units stay low and let them come.
From the eyes of a special ops officer, Joe Michael Riggy brings to life this amazing story of survival, the unknown and the unexpected.
Here they come. Hold your fire. Hold. Now.
Codename Eagle Force at TayPublishing.com.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
The consciousness revolution has begun. Do you feel it?
Yes, we do.
Join Corinne Alyssa every Monday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, as she explores the layers of possibilities and sifts through the questions that many have been waiting to ask. Consciousness Revolution ponders and will answer questions that have been awakening within your DNA. Consciousness Revolution, hosted by Corinne Alyssa. Mondays, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Consciousness Revolution.
When danger is imminent, will you be prepared? Now many mobile devices can bring you critical information from local sources you trust. With the unique sound and vibration, wireless emergency alerts keep you in the know wherever you are. Learn more at ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, for Hyperspace, the one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace, hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Want to take a ride?
If ever a breed was affectionate to a fault, it's the Golden Retriever. They're people dogs, pure and simple. And the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada needs your help. If you would like to volunteer, foster, adopt, or donate, go to the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada's website at grrsn.org. That's grrsn.org. Or call 598-GOLD. That's 598-GOLD.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everybody, and happy Fantopia Friday. I am Erica Lukes, always happy to be here. Make sure you find me on Facebook, send me messages, give me show suggestions. I am here, and I'm doing this because I want to help all of us. So please communicate with me. I am having a great time with my guest tonight, and I knew I would. And on the break, I wish you guys could hear what we talked about on the break. It's always so fascinating. Steve Murillo was here with me, and he has been investigating this for a long, long time, and has, in my opinion, one of the strongest groups in the world, really, in Southern California. It's just amazing. So, Steve, welcome back.
Thanks.
You do.
Thank you.
I'm impressed that it takes a lot for somebody to do that, to organize that, to lead, and then investigate. And my hat is off to you.
I appreciate that. But the reality of it, Eric, is we had a lot of good people in support. I was the figurehead or the leader, but, like when we have a meeting, there would be 5 people with jobs, and they all knew their jobs, and they would do their job. And it was all volunteer, of course, but everybody came together for that, so I can't take all the credit. There were a lot of good people there. But I appreciate the compliment. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. My gosh. I think that people oftentimes don't have an understanding. Well, first of all, that all of this is volunteer work. And oftentimes, you're sacrificing your money, your time, your family. It's a great commitment.
And credibility. Don't leave that one out.
Yes,
credibility.
Absolutely. And for somebody like you that was serving in the Marine Corps, I mean, how did you tell your friends?
That's a good question. I don't talk about it a lot. I'm not. Here's my deal. I was never and never have been someone trying to convince everybody that they exist. I had the experience, so I know they exist. But that's enough for me. I don't need everybody else to be convinced about it, because after looking at the subject for even just a year or so, I realized the whole topic is being controlled. The information is being controlled, and society is being manipulated to respond to that information in a certain way. And the only way that veil is lifted for a person is when they have their own experience. For example, people will come up to me, they've seen me on TV and go, "So you believe in aliens, right?" And the question of you believe presupposes that it requires some amount of faith to quote unquote believe in UFOs. I don't need faith because I had the experience of it, so I'm 100%, 110% convinced through my own experience that they exist. But I've found, no matter how much data you present, how many cases you present, how many old photos, the good black and whites and the good photos from the old days that you can show, if somebody's a skeptic or somebody doesn't have room in their mind to believe in, to actually assimilate that information, they're not going to believe it anyway. It's so it's not a question of faith for me. I don't need to believe it. I had the experience, but a lot of people, they need to have the experience, or it's simply just, you're just beating your head against the wall trying to convince them. So I never tried to convince people of that. That's not my mission. My mission was, and still is to study the phenomenon and try to understand what it is. And if there's some possible way to expose it, then that would be great. But that is a daunting task.
Yes, it is. And I think, with all of the different factions and all the lower level politics that takes place, unfortunately, in ufology, it's hard to get, we wonder why no great changes will be made in our field. It's because of all this type of nonsense, I believe, And I hope that at some point in time we will be able to make great changes, because I think for me, I always look at, when I was really active and a state director for MUFON, I would look at all of this data and say, okay, there are patterns here. Why aren't we looking at the patterns? We shouldn't be just looking at this as one single sighting, and because it wasn't a nuts and bolts, I can knock on it kind of craft, then it means nothing. You've got all of these sightings that are taking place in specific areas year after year after year, and nobody is saying anything about that. Yeah.
And excluding certain phenomenon from it, say balls of light or sort of paranormal phenomenon that go along with it, excluding those things from the research, well, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because it is part and parcel to the phenomenon. Like, for example, at the Skinwalker Ranch, these people were encountering poltergeist phenomenon. Well, we found that along the way, a lot of abductees have are surrounded by poltergeist-like phenomenon. And so to exclude that as, that's just ridiculous, or that's ghosts or whatever, or it's not part of ufology. No, it is, but you're excluding it. So you're basically tying one hand behind your back trying to understand something.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that I thought was interesting, because, you have this argument that people won't take it seriously if we talk about the paranormal. Well, who is we?
Yeah.
Is it a group on Facebook? Because I'm not sure.
Right. What are we really up to? Right. Exactly. Who are you trying to impress? What are you really trying to do here? Are you trying to write a book or convince people, or what's your goal? What's your mission?
Right.
My mission was always just kind of go where the data led. And, so yeah, we encountered some really interesting phenomenon. We encountered one lady, for example, who had tons of poltergeist phenomenon going on around her in her little room in her little house in Hollywood. So much so, and she was a devout Catholic, so much so that the priest came to give an exorcism to the household. When my buddy Alex went to visit with her, because she was sort of out of ideas and somehow came across our organization, he went because she had been describing paranormal phenomenon, and he's interested in that as well. So he went over there. But when she started showing him pictures, not really realizing what she had been taking pictures of outside, she was taking pictures of craft. And she had picture after picture after picture of UFOs. Now, she was a little bit, nuts. And he asked if he could take some of the photos with him, and she didn't want to. She was very nervous. and she didn't want to give them to him. So he stayed in touch with her. But what happened since, after the first visit, the priest came back, got a hold of those photos, and burned them all. So that potential evidence was destroyed. But he's firsthand, and he wouldn't lie to me. He just he tells it like it is. So but it was really interesting. I mean, she had a lot of moving objects and bruises and all kinds of weird stuff happened to her. Sort of like the entity thing, but played down a little bit.
Oh, that's comforting. Remember the,
Oh, yeah. It was a little bit on the evil side, which is not uncommon in the abduction field. You don't necessarily, you have the contactees, which I put in about a 10% category, or maybe 20% of them are contactees where they're going along with it and they think everything's rosy. And then you have the rest of the poor people who are being abducted against their will. They have vague recollection or clear memory of things being done to them without their consent. And they have marks on their bodies. They have, terrible memories of very traumatic things that happened to them, essentially, rape scenarios. Not exactly for the good of humanity type stuff,
Oh, yeah.
And, I don't know if you got into that research at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's fascinating because people have such different experiences, but
Yep.
I mean, the bottom line is, though, when you're taken out of your bed in the middle of the night and subjected to things, it's definitely a violation of a lot. And I think that we should be concerned, and we absolutely have to take this seriously, and we need to be a little bit kinder and gentler to people that have these experiences.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the people that attended our meetings, that still do, month in and month out, they are abductees or contactees, most of them abductees, trying to come to some sort of understanding, coming to grips with what's been happening to them in their lives, trying to make some sense of it, and always having that full knowledge that the phenomenon exists. So, what I've watched over the years is that the abduction phenomenon, it basically takes people from normal, and it could throw them into a psychosis. So it's not always healthy, not always a good thing. I mean, you had John Mack, who's a very, very well respected. I respect his research. He was a doctor of medicine, Harvard board and all that.
Oh, yeah,
board
he was brilliant.
certified. Yeah, he was brilliant. And he did a lot of interviews and some hypnotic regression, but he sort of put his own spin on it and believed that it was some sort of a transformation that was taking place, that our culture of man was going through, and that it was his conclusions were that the phenomenon was real, that it was happening, but there was some greater good was going to come from this. But Hopkins, not so much. He was on the fence about it. He did thousands of cases, a lot of hypnotic regression, but he was not of the opinion it was necessarily good, because he saw the results of the experiences for many people were not positive. David Jacobs, totally against it. He doesn't think there's anything but nefarious, motivation behind it. So he is not a fan of abduction at all. But then there's Barbara Lamb, who's a great hypnotherapist in Los Angeles, and she seems to have a more positive, because some of her subjects report positive experience. I think of it in my research of abductees and my interviews with them, I always kind of got the feeling the ones that were claiming positive experience, they were kind of going through this Helsinki syndrome, where they were identifying with their captor and then being led to conclusions about their experience by the abductors, led to the conclusions that this was all for their own good, that they were part of some grand program, they were going to save the planet, they were going to help when things go bad, they were going to be, directors or whatever. So they were given kind of this suggestion that things were going to be okay. But again, I have yet to find a very well-adjusted abductee. I haven't met one yet. Most of them lead kind of isolated lives. A lot of the women have problems with their reproductive system and often have hysterectomies as they get older. A lot of them don't have kids. A lot of them don't have normal kids, what I should say, or, children on this planet. Not all, but kind of more than just a few. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Male and female abductees don't have children. At least that's what I've found in my research. That may not be true for another researcher. I mean, I can think of at least one abductee who has had children, but most of them don't, and for a number of reasons I could give.
That is interesting. Do you ever feel with your experiences that you might have been abducted?
Not during that sighting. What happened though, and so this is it became new to me over the years of research. So, I hadn't had any kind of experiences with UFOs until that in 2001. And, I'm 56 years old now. So this was back when I was, 41 years old. So up to that point, I'd never had an experience with UFOs, to my memory. Okay. But through the research, it took me back over the years. I started recalling a period of time in my life when I was young. I was an adolescent, where I used to have these vivid dreams. I'm in junior high school. Okay. Vivid dreams of these guys coming through the wall and taking me. And when I say guys, little guys, little, I can't describe them as grays, just vague recollections of these things dissolving through the wall to take me. And I always, at that time, thought that they were nightmares. I classified, in my mind, I just thought I was having some kind of strange nightmare. But for many, probably a good 3 years, that period of time, I would stay wide awake and try to make it to 3 o'clock in the morning. This was in my probably, I don't know how I was, like 12, 13 years old, whatever you are in junior high. But I somehow thought in my mind, if I could just make it past 3 a.m., they'd leave me alone. So can you imagine a kid staying up every night for a couple of years till 3 a.m. trying to stay awake?
Gosh.
And I forgot all about those memories, right? I forgot all about that stuff, as I finally grew up and went to the military and all that. Totally forgot about all that information. I even remember a time when I was sitting in homeroom, I think it was 7th grade, and I was doodling on, remember those blue binders or kind of cloth binders?
Yeah.
You'd draw on the cloth, you'd make doodles, drawings, whatever, everybody would draw on their binders. Uh-huh. And I was doodling. And I doodled a face, which I remember, which I look back on now was a clear gray alien. But it had a cape. It had the face and the cape and this and that. And I was really kind of not paying attention to the drawing. I was listening to the homeroom teacher or whoever was talking at the time. And then as I was done with the drawing, I looked down, and this feeling of recognition and the words, "There you are," or "Yeah, it's you," something like that came to mind as I'm looking at this little drawing. You know what I mean? And this is when I'm a kid. So have I ever been abducted? I don't know. But I had these strange memories and strange experiences. And you know what stopped it? I used to fight these things. And what stopped it, I was raised Catholic. And I called I decided this was going to stop, right? So I decided to pray to Jesus. And I said, as this event was happening, and I literally remember wrestling or fighting with these guys in my mind, saying the Our Father and praying, and it stopped. And from then on, I was not bothered.
And that is not the first story. It's not the first time I've heard that.
I know, that's interesting. See, now that was my kid memory. That was my kid remedy. So it stopped, and then from then on, so that's probably why I forgot about it, right? It was over. So, going now through time and then coming into ufology and studying that, I came across an abductee who reported the same experience. But she learned about it through a book, reading it. I forget who she read, but she was an abductee, and through her reproductive years, she was being abducted quite often. She had her own child. This is one of the people who I know has her own child. but was still an abductee even after having her own child. But then came across this information, and she was raised Catholic, and she did the same thing. She prayed. And I just got this report recently. I saw her at a dinner party around January, and I had lost touch with her for years and years. But that prayer stopped it for her too. So now she's going back to church. she's going to church every Sunday.
That is fascinating. I have a friend here, and he's actually, he has a good position in the LDS Church, and he has been called in to work with people that have had experiences like this. And it's the same thing, you give a blessing or do things like that, and it seems to help. And who knows why that is, but it is really, really interesting. Did you have in your lifetime, did you have the paranormal stuff happening as well?
No, not really. No, like, poltergeist phenomena and all that. Not to my knowledge, no. I had a couple strange experiences that, going back again, through the research, looking back at my own life. For example, I had this one strange experience as a little bit older, maybe about the same time. So the whole family's sitting around at the dinner table. It's dinner. We're having dinner. And it's summertime in Southern California, okay? We're having dinner, normal conversations, and then all of a sudden there's this lightning storm outside, okay? This is my memory, and it may be just I totally made this thing up, right, in my head. But the memory was that all of a sudden this storm appears outside. We lived in a cul-de-sac, but just outside, a big old thunderstorm, lightning strikes, and then everybody at the dinner table is frozen in time. My memory is that I'm looking at everybody, and I'm moving around, and I'm conscious, but everybody else is frozen. Okay? The next memory I have of that event, I'm sitting in an upstairs bedroom. I don't know how I got there, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm watching this strange blinky light thing go through the dark clouds and leave. Now that's a classic memory of an abductee, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but and that's what I remember. Now, did it really happen? I don't know. Did I make it up? I don't know. But it's interesting, and it wouldn't be the first time I'd heard that story of frozen time. I was dating a girl. This reminds me of another story. When I was about 29, just got out of the military. I was at TRW. I was dating this girl from the gym. She was very pretty, very nice. And we had gone out on a couple dates, and then she decided to open up to me and tell me about her abduction experiences, right? And at that time, I knew nothing about abduction at all, right? And, sweet girl, very attractive, but now she's telling me about aliens, and I'm like, what? I'm thinking she's a nut. So, that relation, but the story she told me was this. So she had been having these abduction experiences her whole life, and she grew up in Long Island. So she's at her friend's house, and her friend has a nice house overlooking some lake somewhere in the state of New York or Long Island, that area. And she's standing on the porch with her friend, and the parents and everybody are inside. And lo and behold, this red ball of light starts coming towards them across the lake and towards their porch. And she tries to scream because it's coming right at her, but she can't get anything out. And she looks and she notices everybody's frozen in time. So similar kind of story. And she doesn't remember what happens after that. She just remembered that she couldn't scream and that this thing was there. Another time she was riding her bike along a country road. She sees this craft coming down at a dramatic angle, and it looks like it's going to crash, and it's going to crash behind a barn like that she's riding by, and she's bracing herself for the explosion because this thing's coming down at a huge speed. She said it went behind the barn, and it was silent, and nothing happened. She said as if it went right into the earth. So she told me these stories, at a time when I was not ready for that sort of information. You know what I mean? I was like, what? I just thought she was.
That's a deal breaker when you're not into this.
That was a deal breaker. I was like, okay, this girl's crazy, really hot, but she's out of there. Can't date her anymore. So yeah. So I have experience with abductees over time, I guess.
Oh, and it's so fascinating. They're all related, like you say. And for me to research the orange orb phenomena and then to see how much all of this goes back to being abducted.
Yeah. Think about the think about the implications. Okay, so if you really can stop the abduction phenomenon by praying to God, what does that imply? Or praying to Jesus, what does that imply? Does it imply that these things are demonic? There was a board commissioned by the White House back in the 60s, and I can't remember the name now, but these two guys were commissioned to study the phenomenon and come up with a conclusion. And their conclusion was that these things were demonic. Now, granted, both these guys had Baptist upbringings, so that could have been definitely the reason for their conclusion, but that was their conclusion. These things were demonic, and to stay away. But who knows? Is that the truth? Again, I really hesitate to put any kind of definition on this phenomenon, because as soon as you do, you've boxed yourself into a corner, and the phenomenon will reveal something that flies in the face of that, and you're stuck again. You're out.
Yes, the trickster, and that is
the trickster.
So fascinating. And I think that I believe that there, like I was saying, I think there are all sorts of things taking place, and I don't think it's just one thing. I think there are benevolent beings. I just have lots to talk about when we get back from the break, but we're going to take a quick break again. I'm Erica Lukes. You're listening to UFO Classified on KCOR. We will be right back, so go get a margarita.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you got your margarita, and actually maybe like a pitcher of margaritas, because it is Fantopia Friday. So that means you have got two other fabulous women coming at you after my show. We've got Tina Marie on restricted airspace, and then Solaris Blue Raven on hyperspace. So we've got some good stuff coming up tonight. So get comfy, grab the cocktails, and have a fabulous Friday night. I am here with Steve Murillo, who is, I'm thinking he might be my hero. At the moment. Yeah, but seriously, you have done some really, really cool things, not to mention the fact you've been up to Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, now that's in your neck of the woods.
It is.
And, there's no reason why you shouldn't be going out there to do a little research. Well, maybe there's a few reasons why you shouldn't, but that was a really interesting place to go. So what's cool about Skinwalker is it brings in other elements besides UFOs. Now, there are a lot of people in the area surrounding the Skinwalker Ranch that have seen objects, and they're not afraid to talk about it. So I'll get into it with you. So a couple of years ago, Alex Mastretta and I, my director of field investigations, and I decided we're going to go down there. I think it was now 3 years ago, almost coming up on 3 years. So we flew to Salt Lake, rented a car, and drove to the town of Ballard, Utah, just outside of Ballard, Utah. And a lot of strange things happened along the way that, when you take them one at a time, they don't really seem like much. But when you put the whole thing together, they add up to something kind of strange. So, for example, the morning of that we're supposed to jump on a plane and fly to Salt Lake, we had decided we're going to meet at a hotel near the airport because we could park our cars there and then just jump, get in a shuttle and get on the plane. So Alex lives across town. He lives maybe about an hour away from me. So I'm trying to get ready. It's morning and we have a power failure. So nothing that I'm supposed to take on this trip is charging, right? So there's a power failure in my neighborhood. No big deal. So because of that, I'm a little late, right? Gathering my stuff together. I'm a little late. I get to the point where we're rendezvousing and I tell Alex what happened. He goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I had a power failure." He goes, "You're kidding." I go, "No, why?" He goes, "I had one too." "Oh, interesting. Okay, whatever." So we get on the plane. We go to Salt Lake. We rent a car that's one of these, electric start push button things where you carry the key in your pocket and you push it. So we take off with the car. It's a nice little SUV. We're driving. I think it's about a 3-hour drive to Skinwalker from Salt Lake. We're driving along. At about halfway point, we decide to pull over at a Wendy's for some refreshment, some food. So we pull over to the Wendy's. We go back to the car, and it's having trouble starting. We're pushing the button. It's not quite starting, but finally it fires up. Great. So we get in the car. We drive all the way to Ballard. We get there. So now it's like kind of dusk. It's time for dinner. So we find the only kind of restaurant in town. It's a bowling alley, and they've got this restaurant going. So we pull in there, and we figure we'll have dinner and then go to the hotel. And so we pull into the bowling alley. We have our dinner. We come out, and the car won't start. Okay, well, they gave us a lemon, right? Mm-hmm. No big deal. So I call the rental car agency and I say, "Hey, look, we've got this problem with this car. It won't start." So they put one on a flatbed, and some poor guy has to drive it all night to get to us, right? So meanwhile, we're meeting the people from the town, and a lot of them are the Ute Indians that live on the reservation there. And they know all about Skinwalker Ranch, and they don't go near it. And to them, it's part of their folklore. To them, it's part of their culture. The strange things, there's evil and there's good, and you don't mess with the evil. For example, the people there in Ballard or in the reservation there, they keep things in the back of their cars, such as car seats, books, jackets, things like that. And we just kind of noticed that a lot of people had a lot of stuff in their back seat. And we asked somebody finally, "Why do you do that?" And they go, "Well, you don't want bad spirits to jump in the back of your car and follow you home." Oh, okay. It's interesting. That's interesting. It's a little, custom. Okay. You got to respect that. Those things come from something, right? They don't just make that stuff up. So, so we have to call a cab. So across from the bowling alley, across the big old highway, there's this really nice gas station with a convenience store in there. So Diet Dew, right? I got to get a Diet Dew. So I go, "Hey, come on, Alex, let's go get some beef jerky and a Diet Dew and figure this thing out." So we go in there, and there's a kid that's the cashier. There's a kid sitting at the desk, and there's an older lady in the back. She's just sweeping and stuff. They had a little restaurant in there too, a little cafe. And so I'm getting my Diet Dew, and as I'm walking towards the counter, somehow it fumbles out of my hand and just smashes on the floor, and it goes everywhere, right? And the kid's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I got it. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it." And it kind of opened a conversation. He's a young kid. He's about 18. And I go, hey, sorry, man, we got to talking. And I go, so you ever see anything strange around here? Because this little convenience store is probably about a mile away from the ranch itself. He goes, what? I go, yeah, you ever see anything strange? He goes, you mean like Skinwalker Ranch, right? I go, yeah. And he goes, we're not supposed to. He goes, we don't like to talk about that. And when he said that, his grandma, or whoever she was in the back, spits. Like she spits and turns her back on us, right? And then just keeps sweeping. It's no big deal. Like, yeah, but it was you could tell it was like kind of a custom when you're warding off. I've seen it before when you're warding off, demons or someone speaking ill of you, or or somebody's come in the room you don't like, you spit. So that was her reaction. So, but I'm looking at the kid. He's 18, and I figure I can probably talk to him a little bit. So I'm talking to him. I go, what have you seen? He goes, oh, I could tell you some stories. He goes, I've seen UFOs. He goes, I had a UFO follow me from, I forget the town that was about 25 miles away from him. Followed me all the way from there here. I go, what did it look like? It was really cool looking. He said it was metallic, but it was sort of long, not tubular, but sort of stretched, like he said, like a stretched out teardrop, but it had, he described it in detail, like markings on it and things like that. And he said this thing followed him for the drive. And he said, but other things have happened too. He goes, when I was in high school, we used to challenge each other to go towards the gate of the Skinwalker Ranch. And he goes, and there's this dog with no legs that came out and chased us, but it had glowing red eyes. And you're just telling stories. I'm like, wow, this is cool. This kid's opening up. I go, do you think you could take us over there to the gate? He goes, no, I wouldn't go there. He goes, besides I'm working. I go, well, what about tomorrow night? You think you want to go over there with us? Oh, no, I couldn't do it. I go, come on, man. I just talked him into it. I got him to give us his phone number, his cell number, so we could call him, and he'd be our guide. And he didn't want to do it, but he sort of like kind of nodded that he would, and, he didn't want to, but he was sort of like enthralled with the idea of a little adventure, new guys in town or whatever. It must be boring there. So he became kind of like a buddy. So we put that down and we got a cab, and, the cab was an interesting ride too. This is at night now, cause we're going back to the hotel. Our conked out car is at the bowling alley. And the cabbie was a Ute Indian, and he had already 2 passengers with him. And so we get in with these other people, and we start asking him about the Skinwalker Ranch. He says, we can't talk about that right now. Let's talk about something else, because he didn't want to scare his other passengers. So, okay, fine, we shut up. So then he dropped them off at their house, and then now we're alone. And he goes, man, you can't talk about that stuff. What do you mean? It's bad stuff, man. It's bad. It's evil. You don't want to talk about that. Oh, really? Yeah. And he starts telling whatever story. Okay. So he drives us to our hotel, and the next morning, the guy brings the car, the new car. We get that done, and now we're going to go on a scouting mission around the ranch to figure out where we're going to scope this thing from, and just kind of, stake out. So we're looking around, and we're driving all around the terrain. So this is a cool place. You got to go there, Erica. You really got to go there.
No, I've been there.
You have?
Really cool multi-generational abduction case. And I've been there. It's very austere and beautiful, but it is foreboding. I mean, it is. Oh.
So I don't want to bore your listeners, because the story could go on and on. The bottom line is we staked the ranch out that next night, and we found a nice place. It turned out that this is a place where other researchers have come to find is a good place to just stare at the ranch all night. So we're up. The kid at the liquor store, he didn't want to come, so we're sitting there, and it's about 3 a.m. And, we think we see a little red light floating around, at the ranch, but it could have been just some guy with a flashlight, because they do have guards there. And so nothing's really going on. But then all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's this kid, right? My cell phone's going off, and it's this kid, because I had saved his name and number, right? And so I'm thinking, why is he calling us at 3 a.m., right? So I pick up the phone, I go, hello? And I hear this metallic electronic sounding. It's like, like a computer modem or something from the old days, and all this weird static. And I go, what? I like, hello, and it's this weird noise. So I put it on speaker. I hand it, and Alice is listening, and we're listening to this. Hello, and nothing, right? So we hang up. I wait a few minutes, and then I dial it back because I figure the kid's trying to spoof us or something. And the kid picks it up, and he's like kind of groggy. You can hear he's like, hello. I go, hey man. He goes, hey, and I go, did you just call us? He goes, no. He goes, but I was dreaming about you guys. Are you guys okay?
Oh
I go, yeah, we're fine. We're fine. And he goes, oh, okay. I go, well, go back to sleep, man. We'll talk to you in the morning. So, we hung up, and I figured he could have been just playing us, and just, making it up. So that was that little event. Next day, we're driving around talking to people. We heard some crazy stories. Like we stopped at this little restaurant. It wasn't even a restaurant. It was like a grocery store, and in the back there was a grill, and they had a sign for cold beer, right? So me and Alex, it's like 2 p.m. or something. We've been driving around all day, So we figured let's go in there for a burger and a beer. So we go in there, and there are 2 young ladies working, and then an older woman working the grill. And, we were just hanging out. We ordered burgers. So we started talking to the younger girls and asked them if they had ever had any strange experiences there. And at first they said no, but, after you talk to people for a while, and the mom said, no way, she was like shaking her head, like, not going to talk about anything. But then like the youngest girl, who must have been about 16, started telling a story. And she told a story about shadow people. So this is just outside of Skinwalker Ranch. She was at a girlfriend's house, and they were in the bedroom doing whatever, just makeup or goofing around. And they stepped out into the living room. The TV was on. They had left the TV on, and there was this, she said, 9-foot tall, black figure standing in the living room, but like trying to hide from them on a wall, against a wall. And they freaked out, and they ran back into the bedroom. They called the police. They waited for the police to arrive before they stepped. They locked the door. They waited for the police to arrive before they stepped outside the bedroom. And the Ute police showed up. They were Ute Indians, and they got the report and said, "Oh, this is not the first time we've heard this. This happened last week at so and so's house," and blah blah blah. So these tall shadow people were invading homes and doing things there. So there's the trickster, right? Mm-hmm. And of course you have the glowing balls. One of the young kid at the convenience stores told us he'd seen the blue balls all the time. Sees them all the time is what he said. They go up the river that leads towards the ranch. They just kind of float along at night. And the blue glowing balls. Then anyway, so the girls, getting back to the girls in the grill. So that one tells her story. Then the other girl, who's a little bit older, tells her story. This one kind of blew us away. She goes, "Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. This really happened." "All right, what happened?" She goes, "Well, I was coming back from whatever bar." She worked at a bar, and it was about 2 a.m, and she's driving down the main highway of Ballard. And she goes, right by the cemetery. I'm about to the cemetery, and this tall, white figure runs across the road in front of my car. At a distance. She doesn't hit it. So it runs across the road. She has no idea what it is. It crouches and is staring at her. So as she's driving slowly by, because she had to slow down for this thing, it stands up. And it's this pale white thing with no hair, with big old eyes, and looks at her, and she goes, I almost peed in my pants. She corrected.
Yeah, I would be needing some
She peed in her pants. And she said it just looked at her and then tore off across the cemetery at a sprint.
Oh, Lord.
And it was, and as she's telling the story, she's not, you can tell when a person is making something up. She's recounting the detail, and so now she breaks that story. And then the mom, who had been hearing the whole thing going on, right, and didn't want to, and said nothing ever happens there, and didn't want to share anything. She goes, "When I was a girl, right around here where we were, my grandma owned a ranch over here, and she grew strawberries, but it wasn't time for strawberries. So the field was unplowed and just vacant. She goes, we were sitting on the porch looking out towards the field, and it was towards sunset. She said this swirling dirt, all of a sudden this wind just in the middle of the field starts swirling, and all this dust, like a dust devil. And out of the dust devil, she said, this naked man appears, a naked Indian, who looks around and then just tears off across the field into the woods, into the brush or whatever. I was like, really? That is a cool story. Wow. That was a cool story. So the people there do have experiences. You just have to kind of like get them to start talking. And once they start talking, it's like one after the other, It was a really interesting place.
Oh, it's fascinating. And I think that whatever is happening there, I mean, it's been happening there for centuries, longer than that. And it's just a matter of, a lot of people there understand that you have to respect it, and they don't like to, they're closed off, especially because of what happened when they got all the publicity about Skinwalker Ranch. I think people are just trying to earn a good living, and they don't want to be bothered. And so they're very careful about how much they're going to divulge. But you're right. When you make them comfortable, you do get them going. Since I've been studying that area, and I've been fortunate enough to have a friend of mine, an acquaintance, who is one of the world's foremost Native American historians, and he's in his 80s. And so I have borrowed from his private library all of these wonderful out-of-print books about skinwalkers and the Navajo traditions and different things. And I've been talking with different people. I have a person I've talked with who's a Navajo, and he was telling me their beliefs with regards to skinwalkers. And he said that this isn't something that is limited to these areas, that you could have a skinwalker outside of your property tonight. Wow. Which is disconcerting.
Yeah, it is. It is. So listen to this. So the whole trip to Skinwalker, we were having electronic problems. We couldn't keep anything charged, which is typical of researchers who go there. Our phones, they always had to stay plugged in because they just drain out. So we finished the trip. So we had all these electronic problems, even up to that like phone call with the electronic noise. And so we flew back home. Next day, it's Monday. Okay, now I'm back to normal life, and I'm a part of Rotary, service organization. So I had to call the president for some reason and conduct some business. So I call her, Kathleen Terry. I call her up. She picks up the phone and goes, "Hello." It was, Monday morning. "Hello." I go, "Hey, Kathleen, it's Steve. Blah blah blah. Whatever I was going to talk about." And as I'm speaking, this electronic kind of Nintendo 8-bit music starts playing "Love Me Tender." I didn't quite get what it was. Do 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 do.
Oh my God, that sounds like an episode of Twin Peaks or something.
It was bizarre. So I'm hello, and I think to myself, well, her answering machine must have picked up, and we're talking over the answering machine. So I'll hang up, and I'll wait a couple minutes, and I'll call back. So I do just that, and so I call her back, and she picks it up, and she goes, "Hello," and I go, "Kathleen, that's a really interesting answering machine you have there." She goes, "What?" I go, "That music. That was really weird." She goes, "That wasn't me. I don't have that music on I don't have an answering machine." I was like, that's weird. That's weird.
Yeah, we'll never be listening to that song again. Thank you very much.
No, I know. And so then, as I'm speaking to her, I'm looking at my phone, right, because I had dialed her as a contact, and the contact started to disappear on my phone. Like, they just started to, scroll, like a scrolling, disappearing off my machine. I couldn't use my phone till about 2 o'clock when Alex finally decided to give me a call. And when he called me, his phone number appeared, and I answered it, and I started to tell him what had been happening, and then as I'm talking to him, it started to populate all the numbers again.
that it's never a day that goes by that I don't have something strange like that with my computer, with my phone. It's with electricity. It's a very interesting thing. And I wonder why people like us have that happen more often than not.
Well, yeah. And it happens quite a bit to me. It didn't happen at all to Alex. In other words, this phenomenon, whatever it was, did not follow him home, followed me home. And whenever I have electronic problems now, I always attribute it to Skinwalker.
Oh, dear Lord. Well, don't do that, because I'll tell you, I don't want anything to do with that. It really, the more I learn about that, I have a lot of reverence for it, and it's something I don't want to mess with. And I will just say before we go to break, it was interesting when I have gathered information about it. They say that if you don't want to attract the attention of a Skinwalker, you don't play music at night. You don't go outside and have really, we don't talk, or you don't do things that are evil. This person I've been talking to is a Navajo, said that he had an experience where he opened his drapes and saw the red glowing eyes of the Skinwalker, and he closed the drapes and just started praying and just acknowledge it. But on that note, we're going to take a break. I am Erica Lukes. Make sure you find me on UFO Classified on Facebook or UFOclassified.com. We will be right back with the best part of this show, the last half an hour. We're going to talk about MUFON, orange orbs, and much more. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Three guys, no ties.
But I'm a Sox fan and not a Cubs fan. It's a weird dynamic.
Okay, well, I guess when you're from there, you can have your own way of thinking about something. That's what know. That's part of being a fan, right?
Cubs game is like going to a giant frat party with 50,000 people. So that's always a good time. And then the White Sox game is like going to a knife fight in like a Michael Jackson video or something like that.
Three guys, no ties. Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific. Right here on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Gee, it's so quiet. Too quiet. Terribly quiet. Awfully quiet.
Do you have an hour to kill? Well, crank up those EVPs, spirit boxes, and walk the haunted halls of the unknown with UK's very own paranormal investigator, David Cook.
You guys ready for this?
The Ghostly Hour, live Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern.
And now you're mine.
Come hear first-hand accounts of some of the most famous ghost sightings, photos, and videos from around the world. Skeptics, believers, and spirits both good and bad. Welcome. The Ghostly Hour, hosted by David Cook. Live every Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Coming May 1st, 2016.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific.
For Hyperspace.
The one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven.
Solaris Blue Raven.
Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride? Take a ride. Take a ride.
This is the world-famous KCOR.
That's the only station I listen to.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
I cannot believe it is the last half an hour segment of my show tonight. The show has just flown by so quickly. I want to just mention that tonight on Restricted Airspace, Tina Marie is interviewing Ward Weinheimer, an abductee who says that he has captured an ET on video. So this is going to be a very interesting interview. I hope you stick around for Tina Marie and definitely for Hyperspace with Solaris Blue Raven. We are rocking it out here on KCOR on Friday nights. I'm happy to have all of you listening, supporting me, supporting KCOR and the great programs we have. I will be making a couple radio appearances next week. In fact, I think I might be on Tim Beckley's show. So I will let you know. You can find out on my Facebook page, UFO Classified, and find my website too, because I've got some good information on Orange Orb research there, along with my upcoming shows. So now we are back with Steve Murillo, and we were talking about Skinwalker, all sorts of stuff, and having these crazy things following you home. How do you protect yourself from that?
I don't know. I don't. I've thought maybe I should get a crucifix and wear it, or one of those evil eye things, you wear on your chest. But I think I'm a little bit too. Yeah. I don't know. I've never been one for jewelry, but you never know. It might work. It might work.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You just never know. I mean, I am willing to try anything and everything to keep me and my team safe, because we don't have a freaking clue.
Right. You don't. That's the thing. You don't really. I had no clue what I'm dealing with when I went to Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, I was stepping into a hive of hornets and really didn't think much of it. I was the fool, with this 1 foot stepping off the cliff. And you cannot approach. It's because I really didn't have. I guess I had a sense of it, but I didn't really respect it. Like, I didn't pay it the respect that it was due. So when you venture into this field, now see, Skinwalker and the phenomenon surrounding Skinwalker is and is not related to ufology. People see UFOs there. They see the glowing orbs, sort of related to ufology. But then how about cattle mutilation? Bigelow's group, they were putting cows, tethering cows to a stake with cameras on the cow, waiting for the phenomenon to occur, right?
Yes, and there's some disturbing pictures of that.
Well, Alex and I came across a bone field, like we did a little four-wheeling, right, around the ranch. We came across an area where there were we counted at least 11 carcasses, not even carcasses, it was just the bones, bleached bones of cows. Now, typically a rancher, if it's a rancher, they have to dispose of them in a certain way. They can't just leave them out in the open. And they certainly don't, climb up into a mid-rocks and put them there. I couldn't see it happening. So we took photos and all that, but we don't know what caused the demise of these cows, but there was a lot of them. But, cattle mutilation, that's one of my favorite subjects because it's so tangible, but it's yet so bizarre and often associated with people seeing lights in the sky.
Yes.
So one of my favorite subjects in ufology is cattle mutilation.
And it is,
Anyway.
it's fascinating. And being in Utah, I mean, I have to know as much as I can about that because that takes place quite frequently here. And again, the cattle ranchers they don't want any attention drawn to this. They can't collect insurance if they say that that's what happened, and they lose a lot of money.
They're losing tons, yeah.
Yes, and it's really something that needs to be handled with kid gloves, and it's disturbing to say the least.
Very, very, and bizarre. You know, I mean, that's what put the Skinwalker rancher. His name's not coming to me right away, but that's sort of what made him leave. You know, they were butchering, whatever it was butchering his cows, or they were disappearing, and he was going out of business. He literally couldn't go on anymore because he was losing his hide.
Yeah, the Shermans.
No pun intended. The Shermans. There you go. No pun intended on that. But anyway,
yeah, good one.
His hide. Why did I pick that? Anyway. So what else do you want to talk about?
Well, so I'm wondering because, I believe for me, when I'm researching things, the most common type of sighting we get is an orb. And more often than not, or a sphere, it's an orange orb, at night, or a white orb during the day. You've investigated some cases because I've looked at some of the cases on MUFON. What is your take on this type of sighting?
Very, very hard to draw a conclusion from that. Okay, now I did have my own personal white orb experience during the day. I was down in Mexico. Hold on, my dogs are about to get crazy on me.
They were sleeping.
They're getting restless.
For a while.
They were sleeping, and now they know it's about time for their walk, so they're getting anxious. But anyway, let me remove myself to the other room. So I'm down in Mexico. I'm already the director of MUFON. I don't remember exactly when, probably like 2004, 2005. I'm down in Mexico in Baja, and we're doing a Rotary. We're doing this project where we're building somebody a house, right? So beautiful blue sky, a little bit of clouds, and I'm holding up a piece of plywood for another buddy of mine from the roof to nail it, right? So I'm looking up at him, and I'm looking past him at the sky. And lo and behold, these two little orbs, and they're orbs. It's all, you can't really describe it any other way. They're round. They could be white balls. And to me, it looks like they're playing, like two dogs would be playing in a field, like chasing each other in a field. They're like doing little barrel rolls and goofing around, and they're going in and out of clouds. And I'm speechless. I'm just staring at this thing that's going on as my buddy's nailing. And I don't want to move, because I don't want him to mess up the hit with the hammer. And then when he's done, I go, I just saw, he goes like, what? I go, never mind. They were, by that time they were gone. They were into the clouds and gone. But that was my experience with orbs. Like, what are they? I have no idea. They demonstrate anti-gravity capability. They demonstrate intelligence, but yet it's this round ball. How does a ball, I don't know. What do you make of that? What do you call that? It's not a craft, or it could be a craft if it had something inside it, or is it intelligent on its own? Most people say, "Oh, I saw aliens." Well, they saw an object, but you can't really say what was in it. You know what I mean? You can't. Right. Did you see something looking out a window at you? No, I just saw this object. Okay, so was it manned or unmanned? You can't really say. And if you think about it, our first probes that are going to go like beyond our solar system they're going to be non-manned probes, right? We're going to figure out a way to send them out at a very high rate of speed with intelligence, with an antenna, and they're going to send back information, but they're not going to be manned. So it's very possible that a lot of the objects that come visit us are artificial, are machines, artificially intelligent machines that are just passing through, gathering information. That's a very strong possibility. Now, that 9-mile across craft that you saw, right? Or that your pilot saw in Utah.
Oh my gosh!
What the heck was that? Well, it certainly has enough room in it for a city, right?
It does.
And
It was, and I will send you the case right after we get done with the interview because it is so fascinating and so much radar data and the audio data. And I just, like I was telling you on break, I believe that this is just the tip of the iceberg for what we will see in this area and in Utah, because Utah is full of very strange goings on. And I'm not just talking about the politics.
That's a huge case. That's a huge case.
It is.
Radar data and everything. That's like the Stevensville case. I don't think the Stevensville objects were that large, though. They were only, I don't remember exactly, but they were the size of aircraft, not the size of a city.
No, they weren't. And that's, William Puckett did a little bit of stuff on the Stevensville case too. And when he first got the radar data back from this case, he said, his first response was, I've never seen a case like this.
Probably had a hard time even believing the data.
Yeah, and we went through all these highs and lows as we were investigating it. My assistant state director at the time and my partner in crime now, Jeff Cox. I mean, we he went out there. We put an ad in the paper. We did so much legwork on this case, and I believe even though we closed it in the MUFON CMS, that this case we're just starting. So it's very cool.
Yeah. Did you close it as unexplained?
But of course. Because I can't explain it.
I know. I always felt the database has been poorly organized there for MUFON. It seemed like it needed some upgrades, and because you can't really you can't extract pattern from that sort of a database, and I think it needs to be upgraded. But the only pattern is if you put your eyeballs on it, you might draw some pattern from it, but you can't get the machine to do it because the data is so compartmentalized. You'd have to come up with some sort of a translator and redo the data.
Yes, it is.
My take.
Absolutely. And speaking of your take, how do you feel? I mean, you were involved with MUFON for 13 years. What are your thoughts about UFO organizations? Are they something that will really push us forward? What are the drawbacks? What are your personal experiences? Get ready to go.
No, I think they're essential, but we've seen a lot of them come and go over the years, and because the information is being controlled, and so therefore the people that are controlling that information have to infiltrate just as a matter of necessity. They have to figure out what we're up to and what we know. So they send their people in, not just to report back, but also then to sort of fragment the organization, poo-poo information if it's good data, poo-poo it or find a way to marginalize it. These are all the things you would do if you're trying to subvert or destroy an organization that's getting close to the truth. Or plant people who eventually rise to leadership and lead the organization in the direction you want it to go. So I think that is all done. I mean, it was done with NICAP and everybody else, so it's certainly possible that MUFON went the same direction. I can't say that for sure, but I think it's certainly a plausible idea.
Very interesting. Do you feel that, where do you feel like we need to go with regards to researching this?
Well, that's a good question. Definitely the technology for recording the information needs to be upgraded, but also I think this is sort of how UPARs arose. When I was summarily fired from my job as state section director for Los Angeles, I sat down with the board and said, hey, it's over with MUFON, so, I guess we don't have to have these meetings anymore once a month. And the board was very, disappointed about it, and they didn't want to quit. I was like, well, what do you guys want to do? And they said, well, we need to come up with another organization, another name, something that has more to do with, that encompasses or looks at other things besides just, nuts and bolts of UFOs. I go, so we sat there at a little cafe and came up with the name UFO and Paranormal Research Society, UPARS, which kind of coincidentally, we were sitting at this cafe called DuPARS. in Hollywood. But nobody realized we'd come up with this acronym, in this cafe. Nobody had put the two and two together until a couple years later. Hey, you guys realize?
That's awesome.
Isn't that weird? So, but anyway, we look at all things. We look at, poltergeist phenomenon and ghosts. We had Barry Taft, as you pointed out. We look at Bigfoot. We look at all these different phenomena. They all seem to be related. And if you're not considering that possibility in your studies, then you're missing out. I think you studying the Navajo tradition and the Ute Indians and everything else, the folklore of Skinwalker, could lead you to have a better understanding of what's actually happening. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think, and it's not just the physical phenomena that you can study, but I mean, for example, Graham Hancock, he's sort of this mind astronaut where he's gotten into psychotropics and ayahuasca and all these different things. So he's sort of going inward to get the answers. I don't know if he's still doing that, but he has, and he's open and talks about it. But I think all of these things you have to come at it with an open mind, and just to study UFOs like they're a metallic object, and some of them are, that you can put rivets in. Then I think you're missing out. You're missing the boat.
Why are there so many people in this field, though, that seems to be what they're waiting for? I don't understand that when you're looking at something unexplained.
I think it's because most of us, when we get an answer, it's always tangible. When we get an answer, it falls within our physics, our understanding of reality. It's tangible, and you can understand it. And we're presented with something here that doesn't offer answers, and in fact seems to operate in ways to deceive us from arriving at good conclusions. It's deceptive, or it's cagey. I mean, the phenomenon itself. But I don't know how many witnesses you've encountered where they were the only one that saw it, and everybody else was sort of made to turn away or look the other way, or like my wife, go downstairs and get her wine because she forgot her glass of wine. I was the only one that had this experience, right? I heard that story so many times interviewing witnesses, that nobody else saw it, or that they felt like, or they even felt like it was just for them. And more often than not, there's a communication that seems to go on between the witness and the object. Yes. A lot of times, you've I'm sure encountered that too, right? Where they feel like they've been downloaded or given some information or have some kind of strange idea that they were being watched. I mean, how often do you see an object and feel like it's looking at you with intelligence? That doesn't happen in the normal world, but yet when witnesses are observing a UFO, they often report that they feel like it's looking at them as well.
Yes.
So exactly. It implies like a connection, a mental connection, right?
Yep.
So these things seem to respond to thought waves. Okay, well, that's interesting. We have radio waves and we can tune them in on an FM radio. Why not thought waves? So the brain, thought is an energy pattern, right? That is we make sense of in our apparatus up there, right? Our brain. Well, what if that energy pattern is something that actually can be transmitted, or does without volition transmit through some medium besides our space-time, some ether, right? Mm-hmm. Where you can pick this stuff up immediately. So, these things seem to respond to that sort of process.
Do you think that they're good? I mean, do you think that there's any part of this that is good and really trying to help us?
I don't know about help us, because if they were trying to help us, I think we'd have the solutions already to the problems on this planet. There may be a sort of a neutrality. I think there are things that are bad, and I think there are things that are good, or entities that are bad, let's say, and entities that are good, beings, whatever you want to call them. I don't call them aliens. I just call them, beings. Mm-hmm. I think there are some that are good and that want to help us, but there seems to be this kind of hands-off thing that goes on. And it may be that, we're basically animals with some intelligence, and we still, solve our problems by killing each other. And yes. Probably that would be a dangerous thing to have running loose in the galaxy or the universe or the multiverse or whatever it is. And so maybe it's the fact that life occurs everywhere throughout our galaxy, our universe, and others. And it rises and falls, with intelligence. Intelligence seems to have a trajectory. And you need to have responsibility as you gain control and power over your environment. You should try to evolve other facets of your persona, like your spirituality or your sense of responsibility. But if your technology outpaces those things, now all of a sudden you have these great, say, hydrogen bomb, the weapon, right? And you use it and you blow yourself to smithereens. So I bet, my guess is that life occurs like us all over this galaxy, like in millions of places. And it rises and falls. And if it rises and then destroys itself, rises, destroys itself, rises, but this time it evolved its spiritual side, and so it broke through and didn't kill itself, and now it ventures out into the galaxy and can continue. I think that's a possibility. And we're at that brink right now, I think, where everybody's sort of watching us and deciding, and observing and wondering if we're going to make it. And we may not. We may destroy ourselves.
I know it. Some days, like, you wake up and you look at, I don't even look at CNN anymore, but it's just, you think, you get so caught up in that negativity. But I really believe, though, that there's so much good in
absolutely.
humanity. But I have to just really quickly, because we've got two great questions here. We've got on Twitter, Larry from Vegas is wondering what the most tangible case that is current in the field, either a UFO crash, abduction, or sighting, that you've found really interesting.
Do you want to take that question, or I'll give you my answer? I'll give you I think there's some really good cases there. For example, the Bentwaters case, I think, is huge. That's in England, where we had multiple witnesses of a craft. One gentleman reached out, touched it, and if you believe his story, he was downloaded information in binary that he translated later. That's a really interesting case. Multiple witnesses over a period of time, not just one instance, but actually it was repetitive. So that's a great case, Bentwaters. Roswell, I believe, actually occurred. Now, there are a lot of people who poo-poo Roswell, but you have Don Schmidt has done some excellent work on all the deathbed confessions of people who were threatened with their families' lives if they ever spoke about it. And I think Roswell occurred, and I think you can draw a line of accelerated technology from Roswell forward. And you can also draw a line of how the information of ufology was treated from Roswell forward.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I think that was a legit case.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Brandy from Facebook wants to know your 3 favorite books that are must-reads for all of us.
Oh, my 3 favorite books for ufology. Well, there's Richard Dolan, UFOs in the National Security State, books 1 and 2. Those are excellent. What I loved about Richard's work is that it's well researched. All of his stuff is backed up with bibliography, and he's just a great researcher. He was a historian by trade, so and excellent cases. And I think he's working on a 3rd volume there. I love Graham Hancock, Fingerprint of the Gods. Have you ever read that one?
No, I haven't.
Oh, excellent. He's going to be, by the way, I should give this plug.
And you are going to be in Contact in the Desert.
Yes. Now, that is turning out to be the largest UFO and other types of things convention in the western United States, and probably in the United States now. I mean, last year there were close to 3,000 people who attended over 3 days.
Much fun. I had a great time.
Were you there?
I was there. Were you there?
I was there. I gave a little talk. I'm giving a talk on Friday, and I'm going to be speaking about global geoengineering. I'm going to be talking about chemtrails.
Okay, well, you know what? I will probably see you there, so just plan on it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get together and have lunch or something. But that's a great event. Did I answer the question? What was the question again?
It was your 3 favorite books, and I'll find out that, and I will post some more stuff online. You love the Richard Dolan. Tell us where we can keep track of you.
Graham Hancock.
Graham Hancock. Where can we find you? Where can we keep track of
UPARS doesn't have a great website yet. What we do is we keep track of our people through Meetup. But if you go to meetup.com, you can search for UPARS, UPARS, and join us, and you get monthly notices for our speakers. The other thing is you can go to YouTube. Now, here's the cool thing for your listeners. We have all of our speakers from like the 90s forward There's hundreds of these videos, presentations. They're 1 to 2 hours long, sometimes longer. Bud Hopkins, Linda Moulton Howe, I mean, you name it. Any researcher you can think of is on there. So you can go to YouTube, look for UPARS, subscribe, and watch every single video. I mean, you'd be there for years watching all that information.
I will tell you that it is so fantastic, and I will keep posting that. In fact, I'm going to put a link on UFO Classified because it is really an important place. It's the best place, I think, with all of the UFO researchers on video. And I just have to say, because we've got 1 minute to show close, but Steve, thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to be calling you, and I'm more than likely see you at Contact in the Desert. So thank you for being here. And
thank you for having me. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Gosh, it was so much fun. And to all of my friends listening all over, Jeff, UFO author, everybody out there, thank you so much. Find me on Facebook at UFO Classified and my website, ufoclassified.com. Message me, give me suggestions. I would really love that because, like I said, I'm here for you. And Wayne, I know you were in there tonight too. Stick around for Tina Marie. She's coming up on Restricted Airspace. I'll see you next week with John Kelly. Have a great weekend.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network.